episode number 34. My name is Angelo. I'm the founder of Literally and LivTours, and tonight we have Silvia from Florence. How you doing, Silvia?
Hello, everybody. Buonasera to everybody. Welcome to Florence. I am great. What a pleasure to be with all of you. I can see you, but I can feel you. Thank you to be here.
All right, well, while I pull out the presentation, Silvia, you're going to talk about maternity, mothers, and baby showers in
exactly so. Exactly so. Don't you think it's a beautiful topic right in this moment where we really want to look at the future in the most positive way? And to think from the city of the rebirth of Renaissance, what about talking about birth? What a joyful event. And baby showers in the Renaissance period through some of the most beautiful masterpieces ever created by great masters of Renaissance.
So here it is, your first choice.
Here it is, my first choice. One of the highlights of Florence, one of the highlights of one of the most important museums in Florence, which is a circular painting, a tondo, painted by Michelangelo. You may wonder, why, Silvia, we were talking about maternity and gift, baby shower gift. Why we look at one of the greatest masterpieces in the Uffizi art gallery? Because this masterpiece was painted between 1506, 1507 by Michelangelo as a gift made by husband to the wife when she had the first son, the first child. There was a daughter, and her name was Maria Doni. She was the daughter of one of the richest men in town at the time, in the early 500, in 1500, Angelo Doni, and a woman coming from one of the most important and wealthiest family in town. There was Maddalena Strozzi. So such a capricious woman wanted to have a great artist to make a sort of disco da parte, we call in circular painting, to display it in the bedroom and in a room of their houses. It's still surrounded by his original frame that was designed by the same artist that was Michelangelo, where we can see right on top the head of Jesus, two prophets and two sibyls in the lower part. And we can see a very modern painting, what has been one of the milestones in art history, because believe it or not, this was contemporary art, very modern art in the early 1500s, such an important modern style that has influenced a generation of artists after Michelangelo. But we who had commissioned the painting to Michelangelo wasn't really fully satisfied because of the excessive modernity of this painting. You see, Michelangelo, that claimed to be a sculptor more than a painter, wanted to pay a tribute to statues seen by him while he was in Rome. And he was in 1506 in Rome when he was rediscovered underneath the ground. What is one of the highlights of the Vatican Museum, the Laocoon. So much that if you look at the painting, the main subject, which is in the foreground, you will see the Holy Family, Saint Joseph, Mary, sitting down in a very uncomfortable stance, by the way, being received by Saint Joseph, baby Jesus. And right behind, we can see something that we call the Laocoon, a way to give a date to this painting, to datate this painting around 1506, 1507. Later on, yes?
No, go for it. I didn't mean to interrupt, go for it.
Later on, I will show you also where kind of masterpieces like this, so a way to celebrate a successful childbirth, used to be displayed. And I will let you see also the lucky couple who had the honor and privilege, well, of course, they have to pay a great amount of money to see display a Michelangelo modern painting like this in their private house.
Exactly. I mean, this is clearly the Laocoon.
Exactly. You see right over there on the right side. And it's a modern composition. We have to say that the picture, the slide, doesn't render justice to the original one. That's the reason why you have to come to Italy and visit the museum, because when you're really, you know, Angelo, when you're in front of the real masterpieces, it's a different experience and it's so emotional. The first impact in front of this painting is to be in front of a painted monument, so three-dimensional, due also to the geometrical composition of the painting itself, and the very modern use of these vibrant colors later on imitated by other artists. Something totally different by the other deschi da parto that we will see painted by some other artists, because later on we will talk about other great artists of the Renaissance period like Sandro Botticelli and Raphael. Big names tonight to talk about the desco da parto and this celebrative art.
So, baby shower gift from one of the wealthiest families, kind of eccentric because they're asking a sculptor to come and paint a tondo for them for the annunciation of their birth, and yet they don't like it, or at least they were she was quite unsatisfied. You tell us.
We really don't know if the wife, Maddalena Strozzi, was fully satisfied. For sure, Angelo Dodoni, there was a very rich man, was a banker and merchants, wanted to try to save his money. The price and the contract for this painting would have been 70 ducati. You know, Angelo, what is the equivalent, and people, what is the equivalent of 70 ducati in the 1500? It's about 35,000 euros. So it was a lot of money. Art was expensive. Everything in the Renaissance period, so we're talking about a time period between the 15th century, 16th century, was a way to show how the family were rich, how they could have afford to entrust the best artists of their time, real VIP of that time, to make masterpieces for them, especially in this case, a celebrative art for a successful childbirth. But he wanted to save his money, and later on I will let you know an anecdote about that, about how Angelo Dodoni wanted to save money and he wanted to have a better price. Michelangelo too was a great businessman. Then later on we will talk about that. You know him already. Let's see how this gift that would have been a gift for a baby shower would have been displayed in a real house. So we have the opportunity to see how was the interior design in the Renaissance house. We're now in a room, one of the most important rooms of a museum in Florence. We are no longer in Uffizi right now, but I'm glad to take you and to let you virtually visit Palazzo d'Avanzati. We can see how was a house in the Renaissance period, and you can see hanging on the wall a round shape painting surrounded by a beautiful decorated frame, similar like the first we have seen before, painted by Michelangelo, but in this case, for sure, the painting was less expensive.
So what was Tondi then something particularly connected to baby showers and or maternity, or it has nothing to do with it? This assumption is completely crazy.
And here we come to the point. You may wonder why they wanted this celebrity of art to be painted on a round support rather than a rectangular, as it was used to paint on rectangular wooden painting. And there's a specific reason why. In art, everything is symbolic. And since it was when a woman used to give birth to a baby, the people that wanted to participate to the baby showers, so female friends and the female relatives, used to visit the new mother, bring into her a specific gift. There was a wooden tray, really a dish, desco da parto. So it was really a birth tray, and on top or inside of that birth tray, they would have been offered to the new mother delicacy, fruits, something that she could have eat while she had to stay for at least 10 days in bed. In the Middle Age, mortality for the new mothers and for infants was very high. So either the mother and the child, they had to stay in bed for at least a couple of weeks. And so women would have visitor bring in gift, among the gift, silver spoons, a couple of silver spoons, or embroidery pillows. But the most appreciated gift would have been definitely the disco da parto. From that specific and very functional gift, it turned to be very popular to ask to important artists to paint round shape painting.
That's a great connection, Silvia. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Another place, another important place to visit in Florence, inside of a basilica. We are no longer inside of museum, but this time I virtually take you inside of the basilica, one of the most beautiful in Florence, Santa Maria Novella. And what you see is just a part of a big fresco that was made by an artist active in the second part of the 15th century. His name was Bigordi, his real name, but he was famous with the nickname as an artist that was Domenico del Ghirlandaio. By the way, we're talking about the first art teacher of Michelangelo, and it could be interesting to know that when Michelangelo was only 14 years old, he was an assistant, an apprentice of Domenico del Ghirlandaio. So who knows in which part of these frescoes made between 1485, 1490, Michelangelo have worked together with his master. So what do we see? A domestic interior of a woman. And what a woman, you know who we're talking about, who is the woman inside of the bed, was the mother of Mary. So the grandmother and of Jesus. So the little baby that you see right over there, the little baby that with a very tender gesture is pressing his two fingers on top of the lips, you know who is? The mother of Jesus, Mary, the Virgin Mary. I'm tempted to say, isn't she lovely? Later, we have already seen a Mary, a Maria, painted by Michelangelo, so muscular, you know, in the first painting. Now we can see a very tender representation of Mary, a few hours after she was born. And who are the lady, very well-dressed lady? You see a retinue of ladies with a very rigorous portrait, with a rigorous profile. We're talking about female members of one of the most important and wealthiest family of Florence in the Renaissance period, in the 15th century. We're talking about the Tornabuoni family, a family that has been related with an even more famous and wealthy family, the Medici family. The Medici ruling family of Florence for about 300 years. Maybe in another topic, we will talk about that. What do you think, Angelo?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I know Ghirlandaio because I've talked about Ghirlandaio quite often, obviously, as you can imagine, here in Rome. But it's phenomenal to see that there's actually quite a few similarities with the Sistine Chapel paintings of Ghirlandaio. So, for example, the framed portion right here with the two columns, those appear inside the Sistine Chapel between the side wall paintings. The setting, clearly not an ancient setting of the Middle East, but maybe more.
Not really, because we're talking about 15 BC, 15 before Christ. A pretty modern domestic interior, the one that we see.
But I guess where I'm trying to go at is, if we're talking about mothers, we're talking about maternity, we're talking about, in this particular case, the celebration of birth of the Holy Mary. This is what even female audiences wanted to see, because they wanted to relate to you know what I'm saying? The ability to read certain historical or religious events in contemporary clothing or contemporary architecture was a way to connect with it. But if we're talking about something so sensitive, so important, so risky, like maternity and like giving birth, this is certainly a reassuring message that Ghirlandaio and his pupils were trying to give to a female audience that would watch the painting. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and you know what? You were talking about how risky it was for a woman to give birth to a child. You know at what age a girl, and I say a girl, could have been already at this right age to be a wife and so a mother? 12 years old. I can even think about it. In the other room, there is my daughter, Alessia. She's right now 12 years old. So, and it's interesting also to tell to our female audience that the education of the girls started to be popular right in the Renaissance period. So the girls used to be educated inside of convents, and at the age of 12, really, they could have been ready to be engaged, definitely, so the family would have selected the perfect husband for them. You were talking about lavish gowns. You see how very well dressed are those women.
Yeah.
So the first one, the youngest, you can tell is the youngest, and she wasn't married yet. You can tell by the fact that you see the hair. She has nothing on top of the hair, while the elder women behind had their head covered. Their dress with fabric that was very expensive, almost as expensive. Each of those beautiful dresses was expensive almost at the paintings that we will see from now on. So it was an investment.
Absolutely.
Art, fashion.
Exactly.
The wow factor was really well appreciated. And here we come to another slide. Here is the disco da parte. I do the spelling so it will be easier for everybody to understand the word disco. So D-E-S-C-O. That means really birth tray. It's a masterpiece that we can see inside of a famous museum, the Uffizi Art Gallery. So it means that even this kind of art, this functional birth tray, is considered worthy to be displayed in one of the greatest museums in the world, which is the Uffizi. It has been painted in the middle of the 1500s by a Mannerist artist whose name was Pontormo. And what we see is the nativity of Saint John the Baptist. By the way, we are in Florence, and Florentine is my protector saint, is the protector saint of Florence. That's why pretty often we will see representation of Saint John the Baptist in Florentine paintings. This is the concave part, or the concave part of the convex, part of the painting of the disco da parte. So this is really the part where the legacy used to be displayed. On the other side, very often, it was represented the family crest of the two families, and sometimes a surprise. But we leave the surprise for the end of this talk.
Do it. Then let's get forward.
Very good, Lula. We're still in the Uffizi, so we go back to a picture we have seen before. We go back to the magnificent Tondo Doni. And we can see we have also the opportunity to see the couple that have displayed in his house this magnificent painting. Angelo Doni, the gentleman, very well dressed on the left, and this capricious wife, Maddalena Strozzi. Well, you know who painted this double portrait? A young artist, originally from Urbino, that was in Florence and is 4 years in Florence, right in the first years of the 1500s. His name was Raphael, so was asked to that young skilled artist to paint the portrait of Agnolo Doni and Maddalena. Can you imagine this family had displayed, hanging on the walls in their house, a Michelangelo painting, which is really a unique painting, the only movable evidence, so the only portable painting ever made by Michelangelo, and two portraits made by a young promise of art that was Raffaello.
Yeah.
Later on, we will see something else of Raphael. We celebrate right this year, 2020, the 500th anniversary from the death of Raffaello da Urbino. Raphael.
This is a question that has nothing to do with the theme, but I'm just curious about this. The way they exposed Michelangelo's Tondo right here,
yes.
I read articles about the fact that it was quite controversial.
Yeah, it could recall probably the oblong of a washing machine. Is that what you mean? Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't mind too much about that. It is inside of a case with a protective and very expensive glass. And I like the decision to display next to that Tondo Doni the portrait of the conjugal, the couple from the Doni family that have been displayed for so long inside of another museum of Florence, which is in Pitti Palace. So we can forgive the shape of that case.
To be honest, I liked it when
Do you like it?
Yeah, because yes. I know I may sound strange, but it really kind of gave me the correct depthness to the painting.
Okay.
It allowed me to kind of, it's strange, but it allowed me to get into it a little bit
Very
with
good.
eyes and appreciate the colors more. Also because of the grayness and the different shades of grays here and here and here, allowed me to really appreciate much more the grand colors that he uses and the 3D effect that he uses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is completely personal. And this has nothing to do with your presentation, so I'm sorry. Here you go.
Here we are, always inside of the Uffizi, always talking about maternity with Mary that we have seen before when she was very little. Now we see a blonde Mary, on the left side, the Madonna of the Magnificat, and an almost brunette Mary, both of them surrounded by angels. It's time to talk about the painter of beauty par excellence. It's time to talk about Sandro Botticelli, one of the most requested artists on the market. At the end of the 15th century, one of the favorite artists of the Medici family, and coming to the painting, which is on the left, the Madonna del Magnificat, that amazing Madonna with baby Jesus right on top of her legs, that is writing the Magnificat. You know what is the Magnificat? It's a Marian hymn. At the moment she made the visitation with Saint Anne, after that, after she realized that she would have been the mother of Jesus, she wanted to write a sort of prayer, which is the Magnificat. Could be interesting also to know why we call Mary Madonna. That's why Madonna of the Magnificat, because we say my lady is basically the correspondence of what the French say Notre Dame, our lady.
Our Lady.
And in the Renaissance period, the Madonna could have been also women coming from important family, Madonna from Florence. That is interesting to know. The family that did, you see, is a sort of family portrait, right? Definitely we see a mother and child. And that could be a family portrait that for real. Somebody says, some art historian made the hypothesis that that was a representation of the Medici family. Lorenzo the Magnificent could be that angel, because it's not really an angel, as you can tell. There's no wings behind of him. The one that is holding the ink and is helping Mary to support the weight of the book could be Lorenzo the Magnificent. The other angel, no angel next to him, could be Giuliano de' Medici, his younger brother. And then the three girls could be the other daughters of Lucrezia Tornabuoni. And somebody say that the baby that you see portrait, baby Jesus there, could be in reality the first daughter of Lorenzo the Magnificent. Who knows? For sure, it's a breathtaking painting. Even in this case, the slide doesn't render justice to the real one.
Come and see the real one.
Come and see the real one, even because I'll let you know by now where it is displayed. It's in this room of the Uffizi Art Gallery that you will want to visit for sure. It's the room that hosts an iconic image of Renaissance period, painted by exactly the same painter that was Sandro Botticelli. You know, the woman emerging from the water on top of a shell?
No, I've never heard of it.
Birth of Venus. So it means that virtually, things to be inside of the room of the Uffizi that hosts that reason to come to Florence and visit the Uffizi Art Gallery. So if you could see these two paintings, the Birth of Venus would be right behind of you. We can consider these two paintings sort of hidden gems inside of the Uffizi Art Gallery. I have talked so far about the Madonna of the Magnificat, which is on the left. There's another one on the right, the one which is a little bit more brunette, the one with the baby that has in his hand a pomegranate, which is a symbol of fertility. We're talking about maternity. So it's a symbol of fertility. Then the red color is also a way to recall the Passion of Christ. Colors are always symbolic in art. And then in the specific, that fruit, as a top part, they recall a crown. So a way to recall the royalty of Mary. In this case, this wasn't a way to recall a disco da parto. So has never been a gift to celebrate a successful childbirth, but it was a commission made by magistrates that have to work, that had their office inside of what is still in Florence, the city hall, Palazzo Vecchio. So we can tell that in the Renaissance period, 15th, 16th century, started to be one of the most requested subject, also this circular painting, this tondo, as we used to say.
Absolutely.
And
I
now
love this one.
Do you like this?
Yeah.
Isn't it so beautiful? Can you tell that there's something different between this one and especially the first we have admired, the Michelangelo one? Michelangelo style and Raphael are always so different, as you know, working in Rome. But in this case in particular, we can really tell that this Madonna, this Mother Mary, was painted with true love. Because if you look at the feature of the face of this Madonna sitting down on a sort of chair of the Pope that protect the baby Jesus, and next to them there is Saint John the Baptist, the model for this Madonna was the woman that Raphael loved so much. We have a name and the last name, her name, let's say the name was Margherita. In Rome, you can admire her like La Fornarina, and in some other version abroad as well. In this case, she's dressed in an humble way with a magnificent rendering of the colors, but she's sitting down of a chair of the Pope. And you know why? Even in this case, this Dondo wasn't made to celebrate the birth of a child, but was a Pope. Pope Leo X of the Medici family, one of the sons of Lorenzo the Magnificent, who commissioned to Raphael this painting when he was elected as a Pope in 1513, and he wanted the Medici family still in Florence to receive a painting made by that great artist that turned out to be part of the Medicean collection. We are now no longer in the Uffizi Art Gallery, but in a museum that is connected to the Uffizi Art Gallery by a long corridor, the Vasaris corridor, Pitti Palace, Palatine Gallery, Pitti Palace, that has been the last residence of the Medici family.
Yeah, there's something certainly more human in this painting. There's an evolution, if you will, in comparison to the first one that we saw. Much more motherly, if we're talking about that.
Much more motherly.
The bending of her neck versus the first one, where it's more just trying to hold the baby and making sure the two heads touch and caressing it, lifting her leg in the back in order to protect and create a sort of limb for the baby to feel. I mean, this is, and the baby's super chubby, which I love. It's a very, very fat little baby. It really looks human and very, very, very natural, while some of the other ones that we saw, even though they're gorgeous and they're absolutely fantastic and phenomenal, there is something that we cannot necessarily really relate to. We're going to go towards this later, and we have seen this obviously with other LivTalks in late art of the 1500s and art of the 1600s, where everything becomes much more realistic and approachable. Yeah. But you're absolutely right, and we are agreeing. This is a phenomenal painting, and very, very, it really preaches love. Here you go.
Here we come. So we go back in the museum where we have already been virtually together. That was Palazzo d'Avanzati, in front of another Disco da Party, a real one. What do we see? This is the top part of it, so where the delicacy used to be displayed. And we can see a urban representation of an idealized city that could have been Florence. We can recognize typical Renaissance Florentine buildings. We can see how fun it was. You see the gentlemen at that time, they used to be dressed like superheroes. You see they have their underwear right on top of their leggings and very short jacket. Because isn't it amazing that art is a way to visualize history, but it's also a way to have a lot of evidences and documents about fashion, for example. And fashion has always been so important in a city like Florence, in a city that honed its wealth thanks to a flourishing textile business that made Florence the cradle of Renaissance. You see, these gentlemen are playing a game that it was called Gioco del Civettino, the game of the Civettino. Well, it will say that the game consisted in 3 gentlemen. You see the one in the middle. The one in the middle was a sort of arbiter, and he have to put his feet on top of the feet of the other 2 gentlemen. And then they have to start to slap one each other. The one in the middle have to wear in the beginning a hat. When he would have touched the ground, the other 2 would have slapped one each other just between them, and he have to try to stay till the end of the game with a hat on top of his head. In this case, definitely we can tell that he wasn't the winner.
That's a phenomenal game.
It's a phenomenal game. You see, you know, Florence is the place where it was invented, a very tough ancestor of the modern soccer that is called Calcio Storico Fiorentino. So nothing new underneath the sun in Florence. The Florentines used to, exactly so, even when they have to play a game. It's funny because you see the lower part of this disco da parto. We can see 2 little babies and a puppy and a dog. And you see where we see in the disco de parto, just boys. There's no girls here, because it would have been important for a family in the past that the firstborn would have been a boy or not a girl. In the wealthy family, they used to prepare usually 2 cradles, a very beautiful cradle and just a functional cradle. And if the firstborn was a girl, very often they used to leave apart the beautiful cradle to let her use the other one.
Yeah. And here's
here is
one.
Wow. So you remember before we have seen the disco, and we say that in the bottom part of the disco very often were displayed, were painted the family crests of the parents of the child. And so clearly you can notice the right on top of the trees, we can see 2 family crests. And what else we see? 2 little boys which are playing, and they are, as we were saying before, boys and not girls. The reason why we see them naked is because this was a symbol of fertility. And this really would have, at the auction in 2012, has been sold a part of a disco like that, just the bottom part of the disco, for more than 400 euros. So it's something expensive, it's a good investment.
I'd say. Well, I see this crest, but I don't see this one. Does this disappear, or? I lost her.
Any longer, and then it was painted in the middle of the 15th century, so long time ago. And it hasn't been, probably it wasn't possible in the restoration to complete that. You know that the new criteria of art, if something is missed, we can repaint something new on top.
Of course. You've been extremely illuminating, so I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you, wonderful talk. I'll let you say goodnight to everybody.
Good night to everybody. It's been a pleasure, as I say, to feel you, enjoy life, and start to travel as soon as it will be possible. We're waiting for you.
Absolutely. Ciao, everybody. Thank you so much, Silvia. Buonanotte, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.